Alright, so the OnePlus 10 Pro is finally here in India. I mean, after the China launch, the company has finally launched it in India, and one of the head-on competitors for the device has to be the iQoo 9 Pro. Now, they're both completely top-of-the-line flagship devices with amazing displays, amazing hardware, amazing cameras, great battery backup, fast charging, and everything, which is something top of the line that you would expect, especially at that price point. Now, the big question is, as a consumer, which phone should you go for? Is it the iQoo 9 Pro, which is sort of a legendary device, or the improved OnePlus 10 Pro? Well, that's what this video is all about. This is Warren from GTR, and you're watching my in-depth comparison of these two devices to see which one makes more sense for you. So without wasting any time, let's just jump right into it. Alright, so first things first, let's start off by talking about the designs here. And I have to say, they both look unique in their own ways. Now, they're both super premium devices with the unique camera modules. I personally like iQoo's camera module here since it looks a bit more symmetric, though there are folks in my team who preferred OnePlus. So yeah, I'll let you guys be the judge of which camera module you like. Now, as far as the in-hand feel is concerned, the OnePlus 10 Pro feels slightly better in hand simply because it's a tad bit smaller and fits better in hand. Also, adding on to this point, while I do like iQoo's camera module, it does make the device slightly top heavy in comparison to the OnePlus 10 Pro. Now, that is not to say that the 10 Pro is not top heavy, but yeah, in comparison, the iQoo feels a little bit more top heavier. Also, on paper, they both have a difference of about 5 grams, though in reality, like I said, apart from the top heaviness of the 9 Pro, they both feel pretty much the same. One thing that I would like to highlight is that the 9 Pro has these edges, like after the back panel, the side frame feels a little bit, well, elevated, which is why you can actually feel the difference over there. Like if you press your fingers over there, we can feel the difference in the levels. Whereas on the OnePlus 10 Pro, things are quite smooth. So yeah, that is a very slight thing, but yeah, as a consumer, these little things do make a whole difference. For instance, the haptic motor on both the devices is pretty good, but I think the haptics are a little bit better on the OnePlus 10 Pro. Also, while we're on the topic of little things, while the backs of both the devices are resistant to fingerprints, the camera modules are fingerprint magnets. And once again, with the iQoo, because it has a bigger camera module, you have a lot more area that you'll have to clean. In comparison with the OnePlus 10 Pro, while the area that you have to clean is a little less, the problem is that the camera lenses are a little bit raised up. So as a result, what happens is that a lot of lint gets accustomed or collected around those lenses. So yeah, all in all, they're both premium devices, but they both require some sort of maintenance equally. Now, as far as connectivity is concerned, they are both 5G devices and they both have dual SIM slots, and there is no 3.5 headphone jack or micro SD card reader on either of the devices. However, iQoo does have some advantages up its sleeve. First, you get an IR blaster here that's missing from the OnePlus, so that's one advantage. Second, the iQoo comes with a USB-C to 3.5 headphone dongle included inside the box, so again, that's another added plus. Speaking of added plus, while both the devices come with a case inside the box, OnePlus's case that's provided inside the box is a standard TPU case. I mean, sure, we have the reviews package with us, so we did get this extra cyberpunky case. But other than that, the case that you as a consumer will get will be a basic TPU case, while iQoo offers a premium plastic hard case that honestly just has the same finish as the back of the iQoo 9 Pro. So yeah, it's the same experience carried forward whether using the phone with the case or without the case. The phone looks the same. Now, while iQoo has all of those advantages, one advantage that personally matters more to me that OnePlus has is this alert slider. I mean, yes, iQoo offers all of those things inside the box, and sure, that do add on to the experience, but personally, in my day-to-day experience, the alert slider makes a whole difference. I mean, that is just a feature that I wish more Android manufacturers started adopting. I'm not sure if there is a sort of a trademark here that OnePlus has, but yeah, I genuinely wish that more brands adopted this feature. Alright, so next up, let's talk about these lovely displays. Now, on paper, they both have basically the same 2K 120Hz AMOLED panel, although iQoo's panel is a little bit bigger in comparison. It's only a little bit bigger, not a major difference. Now, they're both super bright panels with 500 nits of typical brightness. Now, if you're talking about on-paper specs, iQoo claims 1500 nits of peak brightness, while OnePlus claims 1300 nits. Now in our comparison, both devices were pretty good for outdoor usage, so that's really good. Although I would say that the OnePlus 10 Pro did feel a little bit brighter, which is surprising considering iQoo is supposedly having more nits for its peak brightness. But yeah, your mileage may vary, and at the end of the day, both the displays are top notch and won't leave you disappointed in any manner whatsoever. Also, both the panels are widewide album certified and support HDR10 in Netflix as well. Also, both the devices have support for various display modes, be it sRGB or vivid modes, or you can even customize the color temperature. And yeah, there are a lot of options available for you as a consumer to play around with. Now, for the most part, the displays on both devices feel the same. One advantage that the OnePlus 10 Pro has is that it comes with Corning Gorilla Glass Victus protection, while the iQoo 9 Pro comes with Panda Glass protection. Now, I have personally used Corning Gorilla Glass Victus a lot of times, especially on the S21 series and also on the S22 series. So yeah, that is something that I can completely vouch for in terms of protection quality. With that being said, if you're going to be spending this much money on a phone, it's just better to spend 1,000 or 1,500 bucks on a good tempered glass as well. I mean, it just goes to protect your device in the long run. Also, adding on to the display, obviously we have the audio part and you get stereo speakers on both the devices. Both are equally good, both sound very well, both are well tuned, so no differences. They are both are pretty good. Alright, so now let's talk about probably the biggest deciding factor between these two devices, which are the cameras. Now, reading all the spec sheets, OnePlus comes with a 48MP OIS primary sensor with an 8MP telephoto lens and a 50MP ultra-wide sensor. Up front, we get a 32MP selfie shooter. On the other hand, iQoo has a 50MP gimbal OIS sensor with a 16MP telephoto lens and a 50MP ultra-wide sensor, and up front you have a 16MP selfie shooter. But that's just the spec sheet. Let's see the actual results. So kicking off with daylight shots, both the phones perform excellently. Now OnePlus seems to offer a bit more exposure with better controls over the shadows, while iQoo clicks more contrasty shots. Now, as far as saturation is concerned, both the phones saturate the colors, but it also depends a lot on the subject. For instance, in some cases, the iQoo saturates the greens a lot, while in some other cases, OnePlus saturates the yellows a lot. Now, both the phones tend to control blues very well, but then again, as far as reds are concerned, they are saturated on both the devices. Another thing that I'd like to highlight is that both the phones lean a bit towards the warmer tones. Now, it's not entirely off from what your eyes are seeing, but the overall shots are a tad bit warmer. And as far as the HDR performance is concerned, it's excellent on both the devices and you hardly have any complaints there. Also, both the phones have good details. For the most part, they are actually the same. Though, if I had to closely inspect, I think I would pick the iQoo 9 Pro, but only by a very slight margin. Also, speaking of closely inspect, you do not have to take my own word for it. In fact, we always provide a direct download link to all of the camera samples taken directly from these phones. Anyway, let's move on with the other shots. Now, when we talk about the human shots, I am not exactly sure what iQoo is doing here. See, in the normal mode, the shot is too darkened out, while when you switch to the portrait mode, it's too soft. Now, by no means do I mean that OnePlus's shot is perfect, but it is far better in comparison to what iQoo produces here. Now keep in mind that I've turned off all the AI portraits, retouching and filters effects. Everything was turned off. But even so, the iQoo was actually just softening up and applying a little bit of makeup to my face. And that is something that I've seen as a common trend on all of Vivo's and iQoo devices that I've used. Now clearly the company has done some surveys to notice that people are actually interested in those kind of results. So if you're one of those, then definitely you would like iQoo's selfies here. Personally, I think I'll go with what OnePlus produces. Now moving on to low light shots, once again both are pretty good. The OnePlus 10 Pro keeps the device shutter open for long by default, even without switching to the night mode. So it's not a fair comparison in that aspect. However, with the night mode turned on, both are equally good. Now, I personally would pick the iQoo 9 Pro here thanks to the slightly better details, but honestly speaking, it's a very slight margin and you would easily be satisfied with the OnePlus 10 Pro's performance. Now, moving on to videos, let's talk to me while recording the videos. Take it on. Alright. So we're recording 1080p 30fps selfie footage from the iQoo 9 Pro, which is on my left, and the OnePlus 10 Pro, which is on my right. Now the 10 Pro has a super stable mode that has been turned on, while there's no such option on the iQoo device. Now in terms of face structure and everything, I think they're both detailed, though iQoo's shot looks to be a tad bit softer in comparison. As far as the HDR performances goes, I wasn't really a fan of OnePlus's performance, but in comparison to the iQoo, OnePlus's selfie actually does look better. as far as HDR performance goes. Alright, so recording 1080p 60 FPS footage with the ultra stable mode turned on both the devices. The iQoo 9 Pro is on my left side and the OnePlus 10 Pro is on my right side. We can take a look at the HDR performance and the overall stability, and I would say that both the phones are performing pretty good here. I mean, iQoo is one of the best phones out there when it comes to stability, and interestingly, OnePlus seems to be giving it a good match. Although right here, at least in this frame, OnePlus's shot looks to be a tad bit warmer. It's not in reality. I think iQoo is capturing the colors better here. But other than that, I think it's a close call, not a lot to separate. Alright, so once again recording 1080p 60 FPS footage, although this time iQoo has been switched to the ultra stable mode. I mean, there's one standard stabilization which was the previous video, and this is the ultra stable mode, and this one basically offers far more stability. As you can see right now on your screens, I mean, the footage is just so much crisp, and also while recording I can notice OnePlus skipping some frames here and there, while there is no such issue on the iQoo device. So yeah, as far as videos are concerned, I think I would slide with the iQoo 9 Pro here. Now, one thing that I would like to highlight is that while recording those camera samples, the OnePlus 10 Pro was constantly switching to the power saving mode. That's quite surprising because the phone was around 40-45% charged and I was just recording 1080p videos. Sure, the stabilization mode was turned on, but the power saving mode was enabled automatically, not by default or something. It just automatically switched to the power saving mode and the screen went a little bit dim. I'm not quite sure what was happening there, but yeah, it is what it is. Alright, so next up, let's talk about the performance here. Now, they both come with Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 with UFS 3.1 storage. And as far as the benchmarks are concerned, you can see them on your screen. Both the phones are performing pretty much neck to neck. However, I would say that in some instances, the OnePlus 10 Pro is a little bit ahead. Also, keep in mind that both the phones were set to high performance mode and monster mode respectively to get the maximum performance output. Now, as you'll see in the CPU throttling test, you can see that the iQoo 9 Pro was severely throttling the performance, while in comparison, the OnePlus 10 Pro maintained its performance. I mean, it's a comparison of 89% to somewhere in 30s. So yeah, that would make the iQoo 9 Pro look very bad in terms of performance in comparison with the 10 Pro. But here's my take on it. During that test, due to the throttling, the iQoo 9 Pro maintained its temperatures and it was very, very cool. In comparison, the OnePlus 10 Pro heated like anything. So, I mean, I'll leave it up to you guys which kind of a performance you want. Do you want a phone that completely heats up? Or do you want a phone that, well, drops down the performance but then also keeps the phone's temperature in check? And that thing kind of translates to the gaming performance as well. While they both run games at the highest settings possible, the OnePlus 10 Pro can run games at the highest settings for a longer period of time, but will obviously heat up accordingly, especially right next to the camera module. While in the case of the iQoo 9 Pro, well, you do start to notice some little bit of stutters after around 60-65 minutes. However, if you're not a power user and you just want a flagship device for a lag-free experience, well, both the devices will suffice you there. Speaking of which, let's talk about the software here as well. You get the OxygenOS 12.1 versus the FuntouchOS 12, both of which are based on Android 12. Now, it's nice to see that OnePlus is actually launching a phone with OxygenOS 12. So yeah, that's good. No special credit. I mean, that's basic default I would expect. But yeah, it's nice to see that it's happening. Now, as far as the software experience is concerned, I have to agree that FuntouchOS is one of the most improved skins that I've used in recent times. And I also have to agree that OnePlus's OxygenOS is one of the most degraded software skins that I've used in recent times simply because of all the bugs. See, I don't mind ColorOS's use of as a source or all the features that it brings on. In fact, using ColorOS as a source brings a fantastic camera app on the OnePlus 10 Pro, so that's all good. But yeah, the bugs are still there. However, in comparison, I think I would still slightly lean towards the OnePlus 10 Pro simply because, yeah, I mean, I do like OxygenOS a tad bit over FuntouchOS. Also because I use third-party launchers a lot, and with iQoo, third-party launchers do not support gesture navigation, while that is not an issue on the OnePlus 10 Pro. Also, while on the topic of software, just one small thing that I would like to highlight. With Android 12, the pattern unlock has been moved to the top of the screen. That is just stupid. Like, honestly, I am raging right now, but that's so stupid. I just updated my OnePlus 9 Pro to the stable Android 12 update as well to notice that it's not just the 10 Pro, it's the case with the OnePlus 9 Pro as well. And that is just bonkers. I mean, who wants a pattern at the top of the screen? It might seem like a very small deal, especially if you are someone who will be using the face unlock, which to be honest works very snappily on this. But yeah, that pattern thing is super annoying. Alright, so next up we have the battery segment. You get a 4700 mAh battery with 120 watts fast charging on the iQoo 9 Pro, while on the other hand you get 5000 mAh battery with 80 watt fast charging on the OnePlus 10 Pro. Alright, now if I'm being realistic about it, as a consumer, while I do love how crazy fast 120 watt charging is, I would personally slide with this thing right here. Simply because Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 is a very power hungry chipset. So it's best to have as many mAh as you can get. So yeah, while it might seem like a difference of just 300 mAh on paper, it does translate to a difference of almost an hour in real world usage. So yeah, I would personally stick with OnePlus 10 Pro. Now, as far as the charging speed is concerned, personally I'm fine with 65 watts of charging as well. So even upgrading to 80 watts is anyway good enough for me. Now, once again, I am not going to deny the fact that 120 watts charging is super crazy, and if you want to flaunt that crazy charging speeds, just go with this. This is so good. I mean, just snappily charges in just 15 minutes, and yeah, it's something that just spoils you. Alright, so lastly we have the pricing part. And while the time of recording this video, we do not know the official price of the OnePlus 10 Pro. However, as far as the leak prices are concerned, the 10 Pro will be launching for around 67,000 for the base variant and 71,000 or 72,000 for the top variant. In comparison, the iQoo 9 Pro is available for 65,000. Now, when you compare both the devices against one another, the OnePlus 10 Pro does have a lot of things in its favor. The 10 Pro offers better display protection thanks to Gorilla Glass Victors, has a slightly bigger battery, in some ways has a more likable OS, and somehow manages to justify its price when compared to the iQoo 9 Pro. And honestly, that is a surprise to me because when I received the devices, I was expecting the camera to be the standout difference simply because of how well iQoo's camera has been. How it's basically like the Vivo X70 Pro but for the iQoo series. And yeah, I've had a lot of expectations from this. And knowing OnePlus's track record, I wasn't really optimistic about this device. However, OnePlus 10 Pro's camera performance really surprised me. And like I said, you can obviously download the camera samples and check it out for yourself. The camera performance, especially for the photography part, not only matches the iQoo 9 Pro but also manages to outshine it in some instances. So yeah, I mean, if the lead pricing is true and if this phone retails for around 67 to 68 or maybe even 69,000, that would be nice. But yeah, I mean, in that concept, I think I can recommend the OnePlus 10 Pro over the iQoo 9 Pro. Again, that is not to say that the iQoo 9 Pro is a bad device. In fact, here's how I would put it. If you want a phone primarily for videography or a phone that you want to flaunt, and the iQoo 9 Pro is ideal for you. However, for everyone else with a budget of Rs 70,000 who wants a premium Android flagship device with a large display, the OnePlus 10 Pro is an easy recommendation. Notice how I said with a large display? Because for that price, you can also get the Samsung Galaxy S22. In fact, if you'd like to see me do an in-depth comparison of the OnePlus 10 Pro with the Samsung Galaxy S22, let me know down in the comments below and we will work on that. And well, that was it. If you found this video helpful, make sure to let us know by pressing a thumbs up and subscribing to our channel for more awesome tech content. Till then, this is Ron from GTR and I'll see you in the next one.